All right, so B and T lymphocytes have to go through a process where they know how to recognize their antigen. And remember, this is an immune system cell, so of course it has to be able to understand self from non-self. So it needs to do that, plus also recognize this specific antigen. So they go through an education process. So B and T cell school. So B and T cells, they go into a school. B cells are in the bone marrow, and T cells are in the thymus when they go to school. So T cells and B cells. Just kind of stick with the colors here. Now, we really only know specifically about T cell education, but it happens for both cells. Both of these cells have to go through this process, but this is really more specific to T cells here. But the first class that it has to take, the first thing it has to do is go through positive selection. And positive selection is where the T cell shows that it can bind to MHC2 platforms. Okay, because this is how cells are activated. So, so they have to be able to bind to MHC2. So if they do, that's a yes, then it's a pass. And if they pass, that means they are immunocompetent. Right, so they can bind to MHC2. Again, this is how activation occurs. So only about 5% pass. All right, so 5% pass, and that means everybody else fails. So failure is which is where they can't. The answer is no, they won't or can't bind to MHC2. So failure leads to they have to commit suicide. So apoptosis. All right. The next class they have to take, if they can get through this one, is called, if you were thinking negative selection, you would be right. So negative selection is, does this cell bind to self? All right. So no is a pass. We can't have these cells, these immune system cells, binding to self cells. They have to know the difference between self and non-self. So if it's no, then the cell is self-tolerant. All right, if it is a yes, then it's a fail. So again, about 5% pass, and if it's a yes, it's a fail. So apoptosis, they have to kill themselves. So we're only getting the cream of the crop on B and T cells that are going out into the body. So once they get through school, so once they go through graduation, all right, then they become naive cells. Naive B and T cells. Now T cells come in two flavors, CD4 and CD8. CD4 cells will become helper T cells, and CD8 cells will become cytotoxic T cells. So once they're out, they're done, they're matured, they've been through school, whatever. So they go out to, hang out at a lymph node or whatever. So they're hanging out at the lymph node as either a naive B cell or a naive CD4, naive CD8. Okay, and they're naive because they have not bound to their antigen. So they haven't found their antigen yet, they haven't bound to it. So that means they are naive cells. All right, so let's go look at what happens with B cells in the humoral response.